Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and privilege to declare open the 9th Biennial Meeting of States to consider the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. I extend a warm welcome to all present here today, this morning. We shall now take up agenda item 2 of the provisional agenda of the meeting, namely election of the chair. I understand that there is general agreement amongst delegations to elect His Excellency Mr. James Martin Larson, Permanent Representative of Australia to the United Nations, as chair of the meeting. May I take it that it is the wish of delegates to the meeting to elect His Excellency Ambassador James Martin Larson of Australia by acclamation as chair of the 9th Biennial Meeting of States to consider the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. I see the representative of Iran wishing to take the floor. I give the floor to the delegates of Iran, please.
Thank you, Madam Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, for giving me the floor. Iran does not support Australia putting itself forward for the chairmanship of the 9th Biennial Meeting of States to consider the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. Australia's resort to politicization, double standards, and selective approaches in multilateral forums makes clear that it is unfit for such a role. Entrusting the chairmanship of this meeting to a delegation that has failed to uphold the principles of neutrality, impartiality, and professionalism damages the credibility and integrity of the process. We request that the records of the meeting reflect that the Islamic Republic of Iran disassociates itself from the consensus on the decision to appoint Australia to this leadership role. I thank you, Madam Undersecretary.
I thank the distinguished delegates of Iran. I take note of that position. May I take it that it is the wish of delegates to the meeting to elect His Excellency Ambassador James Martin Larson of Australia as chair of the ninth Biennial Meeting of States to consider the implementation of the Program of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. It is so decided. I wish to extend my warmest congratulations to Ambassador Larsen on his election to this important post. Let me wish him success in this very important endeavor and assure him of the support and full cooperation of the Secretariat, my office, and of course myself. I now invite His Excellency Ambassador Larsen to take over the proceedings of the 9th biennial meeting. Please, to the podium.
High Representative, dear colleagues. First, let me say how delighted I am to have been asked to serve as chair of the 9th biennial meeting of the Small Arms and Light Weapons Implementation Review. We know we meet at a critical juncture when both geopolitics and technological developments are straining both the program of action and the international tracing instrument in the most challenging way possible. Thank you to all delegations for the confidence you have entrusted in me to help steer us to a successful conclusion over the next couple of days. And let me take a moment to thank our colleagues in UNODA and DGACM for their hard work in the lead up to this meeting. And as always, I think we should acknowledge the immense efforts of the Secretariat in helping us do our work. The illicit trade in small arms and light weapons continues to fuel armed conflict, sustain criminal networks, and inflict devastating human suffering across regions. It undermines development, erodes state authority, and prolongs instability. The urgency of our work is self-evident. Much remains to be done to address these many challenges. I know that we are all committed to doing everything possible in the coming days to build on the work that has been done to date and to ensure we make progress. I hope we can be creative in identifying ways to address contentious issues and can build bridges which support a constructive approach across all delegations. The collaboration and goodwill evident throughout the informal consultations leading to today's meeting convinced me that we have a genuine opportunity to help reduce the human suffering needlessly caused by this evil trade. I'm delighted that our meeting coincides with the first ever gathering of the open-ended technical expert group under the able leadership of my friend and colleague, Ambassador Michael Kanu. The OETG is in good hands indeed. We have an opportunity this week to do more than merely repeat long-standing positions. This is our collective opportunity to come together and advance this important initiative, taking a special account of the very real challenges posed by dramatically changing technological capabilities. If we fail this moment, the costs will be real and the adverse impacts felt across many of our communities. I look forward very much to working with you all in the coming days, and thank you. I now have the honor to invite delegations to view a pre-recorded address by the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres. I now invite the technology people to do that.
Excellencies, for 25 years, the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons has been a cornerstone of global disarmament and peace efforts. But our world has fundamentally changed over the last quarter century. Armed conflicts are multiplying, divisions are deepening, military spending is skyrocketing, new threats are rapidly emerging, including 3D printed arms and untraceable ghost guns circulating across the black market. And diversion, your focus this year remains the primary method of acquiring weapons that fuel terrorism, crime, and gender-based violence, while killing peacekeepers and blocking humanitarian access. Interpol tells us that there are more than 2 million records of lost, stolen, or trafficked firearms in circulation today. Using the Program of Action as a base, countries must act together to end this scourge. By sharing intelligence, technical support, and capacity building, by developing new solutions to address the threat of emerging technologies and diversion, and by curbing illicit weapons flows and closing regulatory loopholes. We must
relevant global instruments, such as the Global Framework for illicit firearms, small arms and light weapons, as well as the EU-funded arms and ammunition management validation system. In addition, we will commend the valuable work of the Southeastern and Eastern Europe Clearing House for the polymer and modular weapons and firearms produced using 3D printing. Moreover, we deem as important the call to strengthen cooperation between states and the private sector and industry on SALW-related issues.
Thank you. Thank the representative of Greece. I pass the floor to Mexico, followed by Japan, followed by Finland. Distinguished
You should know that you certainly count on Mexico's support to make this meeting a success. Mexico reaffirms the importance of the Program of Action and the ITI authorized recipients in illicit markets. This phenomenon requires recognizing that the risk of deviation is present throughout the entire life cycle of weapons, from the moment of their manufacture to exchange of information. For my country, it's particularly important to trafficking and deviation of weapons. Industry up in the hands of criminal groups or non-authorized actors. Furthermore, we believe that it's necessary to maintain a balanced assessment of and on the affected populations. Finally, we reiterate how important it is to continue to include a gender perspective in the implementation of at all levels of decision making. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mexico. I give the floor to Japan, followed by Finland. And El Salvador, Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, allow me to express my sincere However, as the Secretary General's report released last year confirmed, the proliferation, misuse, diversion of small arms and light weapons have remained drivers of armed violence and have caused regional insecurity. POA, the most recent of which was adopted based on the action-oriented measures adopted at the fourth review conference in 2024. My delegation considers the circulated draft outcome document to be a good basis with its concise mentalities between the POA, ITI, and other relevant instruments. Mr. Chair, as a main contributor to Saving Lives entity or salient fund and donor to several cooperation projects support to the second phase of salient fund. Japan supports its specific reference in paragraph 58. In concluding, Japan is ready to contribute to the successful conclusion of the meeting and reaffirm our strong commitment by adopting the outcome document by consensus. I thank you.
Terrorism and violence undermine state institutions and hinder peace-building efforts. Mr. Chair, this meeting provides a crucial opportunity to the agenda. At the same time, evolving security environments require renewed commitment and concrete action. strengthening coherence with related of systematic attention to ammunition and its diversion risks. Mr. Chair, rapid technological developments are reshaping the landscape of weapons production, marking and tracing. New technologies offer significant opportunities to improve transparency, instrument, including through practical and forward-looking recommendations. In this context, we welcome initiatives aimed at identifying both risks and opportunities, as well as developing information sharing, including on confirmed cases of diversion, strengthens mutual trust and enhances national export control and risk assessment processes. Such cooperation is key to disrupting illicit supply chains. The impact policies are not optional, but indeed essential. Integrating a gender perspective across policy frameworks and ensuring the full, equal international organizations play an indispensable role. In this regard, we highlight the work of existing Finally, Mr. Chair, let me conclude by saying the Nordic countries strongly support the UN Programme of Action on SALW and the International Tracing Instrument and the Arms Trade
Thank you, Finland. I have El Salvador, followed by Malaysia, followed by South Africa. El Salvador, you have the floor.
Approach. El Salvador attaches a high level of importance to the Programme of Action and the ITI as the main multilateral frameworks for preventing, combating and eradicating the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons in deviation of small arms and light weapons. In this regard, we attach particular importance to durable and resistant marking, the keeping of adequate registers and tracing capacities. These measures are essential if we are to avoid would enable us to comprehensively address the different points in which deviation and illicit trafficking may occur. Chairman, we also recognise the growing relevance of emerging production and printing techniques, resistant materials, and polymer-based technologies. In this context, we believe that tools related to the compilation and analysis of data, as well as other technological applications, could contribute to strengthening
Thank you, El Salvador. I have Malaysia, followed by South Africa, and then Italy. Malaysia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. congratulates you on the convening of the 9th biennial meeting of instruments remain central to our collective efforts to prevent the illicit trade, diversion, misuse, and uncontrolled proliferation of small arms and light weapons. The illicit trade in small arms and light weapons poses a grave threat to international peace, security, and sustainable development. Supported by meaningful regional and international cooperation. Therefore, Malaysia calls upon all member states through the United Nations framework to play a larger role in curbing the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Although the POA is not legally binding, it does provide the international community with helpful guidelines and parameters in addressing relevant challenges. Nationally, Malaysia has put in at the regional and international levels, Malaysia continues to support, participate in, and contribute to initiatives under the ASEAN framework aimed at strengthening member states' capacities to combat the illicit trade in firearms. Malaysia also places importance on capacity building Malaysia recognizes that development in manufacturing technology and design technically sound discussions under the OETEG anchored in the POA and ITI and implemented in line with national laws, capacities, and priorities. Addressing these developments require practical
on your election as well as that of the Bureau members, and South Africa would like to indicate that it aligns with the statement delivered by Nigeria on behalf of the Africa Group. Chairperson, national and international measures to prevent, combat, and eradicate this threat. The human cost of the illicit trade, circulation, and diversion of small arms and light weapons remains unacceptably high, particularly for women and children across the African continent and globally. The illicit trade in these reaffirms the importance of complementarity of the arms control and disarmament frameworks, including the Arms Trade Treaty and the Global Framework on Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management, in strengthening arms control and building confidence. Addressing the root causes of the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, including socio-economic drivers, remains essential. South Africa supports linking the POA to sustainable development objectives in general, including the 2030 Agenda and the African Union's Silencing the Guns initiative under Agenda 2063. South Africa has accordingly adopted necessary national legislative and regulatory measures, as well as embarked on programs pertaining to stockpile management and destruction and marking, record keeping and tracing of small arms. South Africa is also party to the Southern African Development Community Protocol on the control of firearms, ammunition, and other related materials. We further emphasize the need for the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women, including in leadership and decision-making roles across all arms control and disarmament processes. Chairperson, progress in the implementation of the POA and the ITI requires adequate capacity and sustainable financing. In this regard, we welcome the initiatives such as the Small Arms and Light Weapons Fellowship Program and proposals for a dedicated United Nations funding mechanism as ways to strengthen capacities of states and support implementation of the POA and ITI. In conclusion, technological advancements can significantly enhance efforts, particularly marking, record keeping, storage, and tracing of small arms and light weapons, and ensuring equitable access to these technologies is therefore essential. I thank you.
Thank you, South Africa. I have Italy, Indonesia, and Niger. Italy, you have the floor.
The past few months. Mr. Chair, Italy aligns itself with the statement that will be delivered by the European Union, and I would like to add some remarks in my national capacity. Mr. Chair, the proliferation of illicit small arms and light weapons and their ammunition keeps playing a major role in fueling instability and armed violence, while at the same time hampering sustainable development and security prospects for many regions in the world. Too often, such weapons' illegal flows contribute to feed terrorist groups, violate United Nations arms embargoes, and determine a rise in crime and widespread violence. That Italy has historically been at the forefront of combating, both domestically and internationally, through a solid expertise and the excellence of our judiciary and law enforcement operators. In recent years, we have witnessed the emergence of new technologies with the potential to redefine our understanding of SALW and the In this framework, the role of the open-ended technical expert group is essential, as it provides at the same time a solid basis to grasp the benefits of technological advancements and to better understand the magnitude of the challenges associated to them. Mr. Chair, Italy is deeply committed to countering the proliferation of small arms and light weapons and the illicit application of these emerging technologies, which can act as catalysts for self-perpetuating cycles of violence that disproportionately affect already vulnerable communities in regions devastated by armed conflict and systemic brutality. Italy's efforts at the international level to combat these phenomena are all-encompassing, aimed at identifying and addressing framework in line with Italy's international commitments. This provides us with the tools for a detailed and preventive action by regulating every aspect of arms exports and ensuring they abide by the strongest standards. Mr. Chair, Italy guarantees its full cooperation in countering the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Mr. Chair, Italy remains fully committed to the United Nations framework to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade of SALW. You may count on our full cooperation.
Thank you, Italy. I have Indonesia, followed by Niger, followed by Mali, and then Brazil. Indonesia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to congratulate you for your elections. We assure you of our full cooperation for a successful and balanced outcome of this 9th Biennial meeting of states. The continued illicit trade, diversions, and misuse of small arms and light weapons continue to pose serious challenges to peace and security at international, regional, and national level. These challenges are compounded by rapid technological developments, which make illicit transfer and diversions harder to prevent, detect, trace, and interdict. Against this background, Indonesia reaffirms the continued relevance of the program of actions and the international tracing instruments. Allow me to highlight the following points for our consideration. With national priorities, capacities, and domestic circumstances, Indonesia has implemented robust national monitoring, licensing, and regulatory measures for standard military weapons to prevent their diversions into illicit markets. We remain committed to enhancing coordination, strengthening reporting, and aligning with international best practices. We underscore that implementation of the POA must respect national sovereignty, legitimate security needs, and the rights of states to develop national capabilities. Second, the significance of continued discussions on technological developments related to small arms light weapons. Indonesia supports the establishment of the open-ended technical expert group to identify feasible technical approaches, share good practices, and assist states in adapting their national control systems. Its work should remain balanced, practical, and responsive to differing national capacities, particularly those of developing countries. Third, the need for strengthened regional and international cooperations and assistance. Effective collaborations, including through strengthened border cooperations, intelligence sharings, and law enforcement coordinations, is threats of firearms and ammunition. We also underscore the importance of capacity building to address gaps in marking, tracing, record keeping, stockpile management, and challenges arising from emerging technologies. Long-term, non-discriminatory technical and financial assistance remains vital on these efforts. Mr. Chair, let me conclude by reiterating Indonesia's commitment to working constructively with all partners to advance the full, balanced, and effective implementations of the POA and the ITI. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Indonesia. I have Mali, followed by Brazil, followed by Islamic Republic of Iran. Mali, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Full support throughout the proceedings. Mali commends the unswerving efforts made by the UN Secretary General, the Office of Disarmament Affairs, as well as all partners committed to this fight against small arms and light weapons. We align ourselves with the statement delivered by Nigeria on behalf of the Africa Group, and the statement that will be delivered in the Sahel region. It fuels armed conflict, terrorism, violent extremism, transnational organized crime, as well as related trafficking. It undermines peace, development, and state consolidation efforts. As regards Mali, following a number of difficult years, this threat is front of mind for us. illicit arms flows facilitate the work of criminal and terrorist groups. To implementing the UN Programme of Action, as well as the International Tracing Instrument, the ITI. To this end, sustained efforts have been undertaken to bolster our legal and institutional framework in Mali as regards small arms and light weapons control. Mali, in particular, is continuing to build capacity of its defense and security forces when it comes to controlling, securing, and managing arms and ammunition stockpiles. We have marking mechanisms, tracing mechanisms. We're working on a cross-border basis with our neighbors and regional organizations. Last but not least, we are raising awareness amongst our communities about the dangers shared responsibility, solidarity, and respect for the sovereignty of states. Thus, we call on the international community to provide support to affected countries, in particular by providing technical and financial assistance, as well as assisting national capacity building and marking and tracing weapons from legal circuits fall into their hands. Mr. Chairman, we reiterate our commitment to the Programme of Action. We will stand together with the international community. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
Thank you, Mali. I have Brazil, followed by Iran, followed by Iraq. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, at the outset, I would like to congratulate you on your election as chair of the 9th Biennial Meeting of the States. You can count on Brazil's full support in ensuring a successful outcome to our work. Mr. Chair, across 8th Biennial Meetings of State and 4 review conferences, we have built a significant body of practice and understanding on the implementation of the POA. In parallel, we recall the successful adoption by the General Assembly of the Global Framework for Through-Life Conventional Ammunition Management. Brazil believes that ammunition management and firearms management are two sides of the same coin and should reinforce one another. Mr. Chair, although progress has been made, much work remains to ensure the full implementation of the POA and the ITT. Latin American and Caribbean countries face significant challenges in combating the illicit traffic of firearms and their ammunition. This is exacerbated by the rapid development of new technologies, which test the normative and operational limits of our control regimes. In this regard, the first meeting of the OETEG is an important step towards increasing our understanding of how these new technologies are being used in the illegal trade and shaping future norms before illicit practice take root. Mr. Chair, Brazil welcomes the latest version of the revised draft outcome document, particularly for manufacturing methods used and the establishment of national, regional, and global transfer controls to prevent diversion. There are, however, environmental issues and security matters. Second, to avoid unintended effects on national industrial sectors, we suggest the following alternative language for paragraph 48. To encourage the adoption of preventive measures by industry to address the diversion of small arms and light weapons through commercial supply chains. Finally, Brazil would appreciate clarification regarding the use of expression illicit markets, as in our understanding, illicit trade would be the more appropriate term for describing the production, distribution, and trade of goods prohibited by law. Mr. Chair, we look forward to maintain a positive trajectory as we confront emerging issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Brazil. I have Iran, followed by Iraq, China, and Pakistan. Iran, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, the POA on small arms and light weapons remains the only universal consensus framework addressing the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. Its continued relevance depends on its balanced, effective, and comprehensive to the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons. Iran attaches great importance to the POA and ITI. Iran has established the necessary legal and institutional frameworks to combat illicit trafficking and related crimes, and has strengthened regional cooperation with neighboring countries. Since 2003, Iran has submitted 11 national reports, most recently in 2026. United Nations, in particular, Article 51 upholds the sovereign and inherent right of states to acquire, manufacture, import, export, and retain conventional arms for legitimate self-defense and security needs. At the same time, we remain gravely concerned by the continued expansion of the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons, particularly the cross-border trafficking of these weapons, which undermine national security and sovereignty and facilitate terrorism and organized crimes. As recognized in the POA, effectively addressing this challenge requires tackling the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons from both supply and demand perspectives. In this context, producing and exporting states bear law and the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, including sovereign equality, territorial integrity, non-intervention, the peaceful settlement of disputes, and refraining from the threat or use of force. Second, avoiding the introduction of new elements and terminologies that expand the scope of the POA and ITI. Third,
Thank you, Iran. I have Iraq, followed by China, followed by Pakistan. Iraq, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, we would like to congratulate you on assuming the presidency of the BMS 9. We would also like to align ourselves to the statement of the Arab group. Mr. Chair, the phenomenon of the illicit proliferation of small arms and light weapons remains a grave challenge, threatening international peace and security. It leads to intensified armed violence and ignites conflicts. It also has widespread humanitarian, economic, and social repercussions. In this vein, the Secretary General's report contained in document S/2025/670 notes that the illicit trade in such weapons, their diversion and use in illegal ways, is the primary factor fueling violence, crimes, and terrorism on the national, regional, and international levels. Therefore, Iraq stresses the importance of promoting multilateralism, intensifying international cooperation to effectively implement the POA and ITI. This would curb the proliferation of small arms and light weapons while addressing their growing repercussions. On the national level, Iraq continues its effort to combat illicit trade in such weapons while controlling their possession. We promote relevant legislative and executive measures, foremost enacting the Weapons Law number 51 of the year 2017. The Standing Committee for Weapons Control continues its effort to limit the weapons in the hands of the state. We take the necessary practical measures to curb this phenomenon and promote the monitoring of weapons transfer to support peace and stability in Iraq. Following 25 years since the adoption of the POA, the challenges related to the proliferation of small and light weapons continue. Therefore, we have to continue the development of the implementation and monitoring mechanisms, promote international cooperation, and build capacity, especially in developing countries. Iraq believes that we must take into consideration the differences in the technical capabilities and legal frameworks among countries while addressing technological development in marking and tracing such weapons. To conclude, Iraq looks forward to adopting a consensual outcome document in support of the POA and the ITI. We further stress the importance of adhering to the agreed upon mandate pursuant to the POA. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Iraq. I have China followed by Pakistan. China, you have the floor.
Chair, the Chinese delegation congratulates you on your election as chair, and we will support your work. China is pleased to note the positive progress achieved by the international community in the implementation of the Program of Action and the ITI. The Global Security Initiative and the Global Governance Initiative, providing China's solutions for the international community to address the illicit trade in SALW. Here, China would like to offer 3 proposals. First, put mentality first and eliminate the root causes of conflict. Of establishing a community with a shared future, uphold a common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security concept, resolve security dilemmas through dialogue and cooperation. Comprehensive and robust domestic regulatory systems and sound and efficient interagency cooperation mechanisms. Countries should also adopt responsible arms export policies, earnestly fulfill their respective international obligations, of its military products export control list, further improving its domestic regulatory system, aligning with international rules, and demonstrating China's emphasis help countries enhance regulatory capabilities and opposes the illegal abuse of technologies such as 3D printing and modular firearms manufacturing. We look forward to more valuable insights from the technical
Thank you, China. I have Pakistan, followed by Niger, followed by Colombia, followed by Cuba. Pakistan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The illicit transfer and unchecked use of small arms and light weapons, including the particularly at the regional and sub-regional levels. Small arms and light weapons have emerged as instruments of choice for non-state actors to perpetrate threaten national security, impede counterterrorism operations, and civilian protection. Pakistan is seriously concerned about the presence of stockpiles of sophisticated arms and ammunition in Afghanistan, as also noted in the findings of the Secretary General's reports. These weapons pose a direct threat to neighboring countries, including Pakistan. We urge stronger international efforts to prevent access of illicit arms to armed terrorist groups in Afghanistan and to ensure that the Taliban adhere to their international obligations and commitments in that regard. Security Council Resolution 2818 of March 2026 also called for, and I quote, regional end quote. Chair, we firmly believe that the issue of illicit small arms and light weapons should be addressed comprehensively and in a balanced manner. The UN Programme of Action strikes a balance between the legitimate security requirements of states and the imperatives to address the issue of illicit arms on both the supply and demand sides. We remain committed to its implementation at the national level and call for its full implementation at the global level to safeguard and promote international and regional peace and security. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pakistan. Niger, followed by Colombia, followed by Cuba. Niger, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, if I may, I'd like to congratulate you on the way in which you're steering the work of this BMS 9, the Biennial Meeting of States on the UNPOA, and the ITI as well. We align ourselves with the statement delivered on behalf of the Africa Group. We'd like to make the following remarks in a national capacity. For Niger, the illicit trade in SALW remains one of the main drivers of instability in the Sahel region. It fuels terrorism, transnational organized crime, armed conflict, community-based violence, as well as violations of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Civilians, in particular, women, young people, and children, are paying the highest price. Therefore, we reiterate our commitment to the Programme of Action and the International Tracing Instrument, a key framework for improving tracing and other aspects of the fight against SALW. Through our National Commission for the Collection and Management of Illicit SALW is doing the work. We're working with our customs authorities, with the judiciary, and all other relevant stakeholders to improve data collection, tracing, tracking, and the fight against the illicit trade in these weapons. Mr. Chairman, at the outset, I would like to speak to international capacity building and regional capacity building, especially as regards border control, technical assistance. The list goes on. No state can go it alone when faced with criminal networks which know no borders. Second, modular arms, polymer weapons, and 3D printed arms. These are developments which call for tailored responses, especially as regards the capacity for detection inter alia. Third, women, young people, and civil society need to be involved in national policies aimed at countering the proliferation of SALW. This is a priority for our government. Their participation strengthens prevention, community participation, and peace building. Therefore, Niger would like to call for heightened international assistance that's also predictable and lasts, especially as regards the chain of custody, the destruction of weapons, and modernization of marketing and tracing systems. Mr. Chairman, by way of conclusion, we reaffirm our strong commitment to multilateralism and all initiatives that aim to prevent, combat, and curb the illicit trade in SALW in all of its aspects. We call for cooperation in good faith within the framework of our efforts to combat these illicit weapons. I thank you.
Thank you, Niger. I have Colombia, followed by Cuba, then Luxembourg. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to make the most of this opportunity to applaud you upon your election and wish you every success in the work this week. Chairman, Colombia believes that the review of the implementation of the Programme of Action and of the international trading instruments must start from a clear reality. There are still implementation gaps that allow the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons to quickly adapt to our responses. On a global level, the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons continues to fuel armed violence, particularly against women and girls and children, transnational organized crime, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and other illicit economies. Furthermore, arms continue to end up in the hands of minors, fueling cycles of violence, weakening the social fabric, and eroding the cohesion and development capacities of our communities. We, Chairman, must not remain indifferent to this reality. Colombia knows well the effects of this issue, and that's why we recognize the urgency of addressing the availability, the deviation, and illicit circulation of these weapons from a comprehensive perspective. Despite significant regulatory progress, there are still significant challenges in the effective application of these instruments. The full implementation of these frameworks is not only a political commitment, but rather an essential condition to strengthen security. Colombia, as a country that's directly affected by these dynamics, has made progress in strengthening its control systems. In particular, we have set forth the module for the tracing of arms, munitions, and explosives, that the MORAF module that enables us to consolidate technical information on seized weapons to support criminal investigations to identify possible trafficking routes, reoffending patterns, and cases of deviation, including from state or private arsenals. However, it's also necessary to recognize that the phenomenon is evolving. The growing availability of modular weapons, critical components, polymers, and non-traditional manufacturing methods is challenging regulatory frameworks that currently exist and reducing the efficacy of traditional control mechanisms. There's also the fact that this must be a cross-cutting priority for member states. Chairman, the value of instruments is measured by their real ability to stem deviation and armed violence. That's why it's important to move towards a more effective, coherent, measurable, and tailored implementation of these instruments tailored to current realities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Colombia. I have Cuba, followed by Luxembourg, followed by Togo. Cuba, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairman. Please accept our congratulations upon your election to preside over this 9th Biennial Meeting of States to consider the implementation of the Programme of Action to prevent, combat, and eradicate the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects. Our congratulations are also extended to the members of the Bureau, to the chairs of the Open-Ended Technical Expert Group, and the Secretariat. Thank you all for your work. We vest our trust in you to successfully deliver a consensus-based, inclusive final document that contributes to progress in the universal implementation of the Programme of Action. Chair, Cuba maintains a firm commitment to the Programme of Action that's an international benchmark to prevent, combat, and eliminate the trafficking of small arms and light weapons. We call for its mandate to be fully respected and it to be implemented on a global, regional, and national level. It's necessary to establish synergies between the Programme of Action and instruments that do not have international consensus will not contribute to progress. It's also there's also easily manipulable parts that introduce double standards to legitimate defense, as well as the right to manufacture, import, and store small arms and light weapons for countries' legitimate defense and security needs. Given the final document of this biennial meeting, any proposal geared towards establishing national or regional goals must preserve its voluntary nature and bear in mind the capacities, legal frameworks, priorities, and needs that are unique to each country. In principle, we agree with the goal of paragraph 8 bis of draft 2. Differences in the nature and manifestation of the trafficking in small arms and light weapons, as well as the security capacities of each region, show that there's no single formula to address this phenomenon. We also must recognize differences in the capacities of different states to implement the program and the international trading instrument. While the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons involves different actors We must not forget the ultimate responsibility of national governments in the adoption of measures to prevent, combat, and eliminate this scourge in respect of sovereignty of states and their relevant international obligations. That's why we are not in favour of the listing of relevant actors participating in the process, but we must also always work towards consensus from a constructive point of view. On paragraphs 42 and 48 rather, we maintain our conviction that in order to eradicate the illicit trafficking in small arms and light weapons, we do not require new tools that involve more administrative costs for developing countries. It is essential to address the root socioeconomic causes that bring about these phenomena and to strengthen cooperation. The speaker's microphone was cut off, say the interpreters.
Thank you very much indeed. Cuba, I have Luxembourg, followed by Togo, followed by Ghana. Luxembourg, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président. Mr. Chairman, at the outset, I'd like to extend our heartfelt congratulations on your appointment to chair this meeting. Luxembourg is following very closely the illicit trade in these weapons. We're constantly bolstering our capacity to respond to the threats and challenges posed by the illicit use of SALW. To this end, Luxembourg has overhauled its judicial police. They now answer to a special section of the judicial police. We're trying to ensure full arms control, systematic tracing, and also the provision of scientific assistance in the area of these weapons and ammunition. We have 4 strategic priorities, in particular, the overhaul of our IT system and the strengthening of ballistics within the framework of scientific studies in order to heighten the effectiveness of our efforts to combat trafficking and the violence produced by firearms. Luxembourg has systematically ensured DNA tracing inter alia of these seized weapons. The identification not only of the perpetrators of crimes, but also those responsible, those heading up these trafficking networks, is also a priority. Last but not least, we are updating our legislation to ensure proper oversight of certain kinds of organized crime, including firearms trafficking. On the technical front, Luxembourg is continuing close cooperation with relevant private sector and industry players, especially as regards expertise, so as to build our capacity on explosives and firearms, especially as regards ballistics, lethality, analysis, the list goes on. Turning now to awareness raising. Luxembourg is making available training sessions so that agents can learn about certain kinds of investigations and bolster their knowledge of certain kinds of firearms and the ammunition that goes with them. In 2022, Luxembourg created a new legal framework regulating firearms. Now, this is a strict legal instrument. Non-compliance therewith can result in very heavy criminal penalties. Moreover, Luxembourg is currently working to set up a specific legal framework for military weapons to build on existing legislation and therefore ensure better control of SALW. I thank you.
Thank you, Luxembourg. I have Togo, followed by Ghana, followed by Suriname. Togo, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président,
Chairman, if I may, please allow me to congratulate you first of all warmly upon your election to chair this 9th biennial meeting. The Togolese delegation assures you of our full support and our constructive cooperation throughout your work. We also welcome the election of the chairs of the open-ended technical expert group, and we express our heartfelt congratulations to them and our unwavering support to them in their role. 5 years after the adoption of the Programme of Action and 21 years after the adoption of the International Tracing Instrument, small arms and light weapons continue to be the main vehicle of armed violence in Africa. They fuel terrorism and violent extremism, transnational organized crime, they extend conflict and hinder humanitarian access, and every day claim tragic losses in human lives. Unfortunately, these are real weapons of mass destruction in Africa. Togo has come to this biennial meeting with a firm willingness to move from political commitments to concrete and measurable results on the ground. Our position is in line with the Common African Position, and it's line on the statement made by the representative of Nigeria on behalf of the African Group. Chairman, before we present our essential priorities, it's important for my delegation to underscore the absolute duty incumbent on states to defend their population from growing threats. This legitimate right, enshrined in Article 71 of the Charter, must not be undermined by the scourge of the illicit trade in SALW that feeds violent terrorism and chaos. We must work to mercilessly repress the trade in small arms and light weapons. When it comes to our priorities, you can find developments related to this in the statement that we will publish, and ultimately it's the need to consolidate national implementation and then to strengthen marking, registration and traceability of weapons. And we are also calling for relentlessly combating the deviation of weapons, the majority of which come still from official stocks, either through theft or other means, and we also call for exploiting the potential of new technology. Togo insists on equitable access to technology transfer and strengthening the capacities of African countries, and we believe that the technical expert group can play a role here. By way of conclusion, Chairman, the Togolese delegation will commit constructively to the negotiations on the final document, and we will hope to ensure that through each paragraph we will achieve more peaceful communities for our coexistence together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Togo, very much. Ghana, Suriname, followed by Cameroon. Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana aligns itself with the statement from the African Group. Ghana welcomes the convening of the 9th biennial meeting of states to consider the implementation of the program of action on small arms and light weapons, and congratulate you, the chairman, and members of your group to the Bureau. Ghana affirms its unwavering commitment to the full and effective implementation of the program of action to prevent, combat, and eradicate illicit trade in small arms and light weapons in all its aspects and the international tracing instruments. Mr. Chair, Ghana is glad to outline the following as efforts to implement the United Nations Program of Action. 1. National implementation. Ghana continues to strengthen its national, legal, and institutional framework on small arms and ammunition as the draft bill is currently undergoing consideration by the Ministry of the Interior and is set to be passed into law soon. I move to the second, regional cooperation. The proliferation of small arms and light weapons remains a major threat to peace and security in West Africa, particularly in the Sahel. Ghana supports ECOWAS-led initiatives, including ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons, and calls for enhanced cross-border cooperation, information sharing, and joint cooperation to disrupt trafficking networks. 3, international cooperation and assistance. We appreciate support from bilateral and multilateral partners in capacity building and stockpile management. However, more targeted assistance is needed for border management, digital tracing systems, and the destruction of stockpile surplus and confiscated firearms, as well as obsolete munitions. Ghana calls for predictable and sustainable funding mechanisms under the UN framework to support efforts, including the upcoming destruction of weapons in Ghana. 4, emerging issues. Ghana is concerned about the diversion of small arms to non-state actors and the links between illicit arms trafficking and terrorism, organized crime, and illicit financial flows. We stress the need for gender-responsive approaches and the inclusion of youth and women in small arms efforts. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ghana. I have Cameroon, followed by Turkey, followed by the Philippines and the Russian Federation. Cameroon, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chairman, my delegation would like to commend your leadership and your election. We are speaking as a country committed to combating the trade in SALW, a scourge which is undermining our societies, leaving people bereaved, meaning this battle is more pressing than ever. We'd like to draw your attention to 4 priorities for our collective action. First, the sea is not a liquid border where our responsibility evaporates. Every year, entire shipments transit over the sea, and there are small arms transiting in containers, merchant vessels, in shadow fleets. Traffickers are exploiting this. Therefore, we would like to call on the Office of Disarmament Affairs to create a guide for the river police and coast guards. Second, the IARMS, the IBAN, and the Arsenal databases run by Interpol are very important. However, only 40% of member states contribute to it regularly, and we know the reasons for this: limited internet connectivity, the language barriers, the list goes on. We need to ensure that Interpol assists the least developed countries. For instance, we could improve interface interoperability, we could translate them into the main languages of Africa. Next, 3D polymer weapons mean that it is very difficult to mark weapons. However, the most pressing challenge are handcrafted weapons. They are produced locally, and according to UNIDER, they account for 40% of weapons seized in the Sahel and Great Lakes region. We need to address this particular class of weapons. Fourth, diversion doesn't begin at the border. It begins when there are national stockpiles which are not properly guarded. There is often complicity on the part of law enforcement. We therefore need to ensure that there's better alignment with the Kinshasa Convention and the ECOWAS Declaration. Mr. Chairman, my delegation would like to recall that behind every illicit weapon that has not been traced properly, there's a broken life. We need to ensure that we do not look away in indifference. I thank you.
Thank you, Cameroon. I have Turkey, followed by the Philippines and the Russian Federation. Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to congratulate you on your appointment as the chair. Turkey appreciates the inclusive and transparent manner in which the preparatory process has been conducted and assures you of my delegation's full support. The illicit trade and uncontrolled proliferation of small arms and light weapons and their ammunition continue to constitute a serious threat to international peace and security. These challenges fuel armed violence, terrorism, organized crime, and regional instability, while also undermining socio-economic development efforts. Located in a region exposed to multiple interconnected security threats, Turkey remains particularly concerned about the diversion of small arms and light weapons and ammunition to terrorist organizations. Preventing such diversion must remain a priority of the international community. In our view, the outcome document should clearly underline the role of POA in supporting international counter-terrorism efforts and contain strong language against the diversion of small arms and light weapons to terrorist actors. Turkey reaffirms its steadfast commitment to the full and effective implementation of POA and ITI. We believe these frameworks remain indispensable instruments in addressing evolving challenges related to illicit trafficking. In this regard, Turkey underlines the importance of strengthening international cooperation, information sharing, and capacity building efforts, including the fields of stockpile management, tracing, marking, and export controls. We also recognize the growing impact of technological developments on the nature of illicit trafficking. The increasing use of emerging technologies, including AI-enhanced systems used for detection and tracing, presents both new risks and new opportunities. We therefore support the continued discussion within the relevant UN frameworks on the implementation of technological developments in manufacturing, design, and trafficking methods. We welcome the establishment of the open-ended technical expert group to assess how technological developments affect the implementation of the POA and ITA and looks forward to its successful outcome. At the same time, any international efforts in this field should remain state-led, consensus-based, and fully respectful of the legitimate security concerns and sovereign rights of states. Turkey considers effective marking, record-keeping, and tracing as core elements of the ITI. Reliable records and timely exchange of information are indispensable for identifying diversion points, supporting criminal investigations, and strengthening accountability. Turkey also emphasized the importance of effective national export control systems, prior risk assessments, and user assurance in preventing diversion and illicit transfers. Furthermore, practical cooperation and assistance programs aimed at enhancing national capacities, particularly in regions affected
Thank you, Turkey. I have the Philippines, followed by Russian Federation, followed by Burkina Faso. Philippines, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, the Philippines comes to this meeting with a clear conviction. The illicit trade, diversion, and misuse of small arms and light weapons are questions of public safety, accountable governance, border security, community protection, human rights, peace building, and sustainable development. The Philippines believes that preventing the illicit trade and diversion of small arms and light weapons requires a whole of government, whole of society, and whole of life cycle approach grounded in international cooperation, regional partnership, and practical implementation. For the Philippines, effective small arms control must cover the full life cycle of a weapon from manufacture to final disposal. Each stage carries risk of diversion. Each stage also offers opportunities for prevention, cooperation, and stronger governance. At the national level, the Philippines continues to strengthen interagency coordination as a foundation for implementation. Our experience shows that effective small arms control requires sustained cooperation among foreign affairs, law enforcement, custom defense, strategic trade management, border authorities, prosecution services, and other relevant agencies. It also requires trusted partnership with civil society, communities, academia, and technical experts. The Philippines support stronger national legal and administrative frameworks, improve information exchange, and the responsible use of technology to strengthen marking, record keeping, tracing, and diversion detection. These technological measures must be accompanied by capacity building, institutional development, training, data protection, and sustainable resources. Mr. Chair, as the 2026 Chair of ASEAN, the Philippines attaches importance to regional cooperation as confidence-building measure. In Southeast Asia, illicit arms flows intersect with terrorism, transnational organized crime, maritime security, porous borders, post-conflict transitions, and community-level armed violence. These challenges require cooperation, trust, and shared responsibility. The Philippines support stronger regional and sub-regional coordination, including peer-to-peer exchanges among customs, police, licensing, border, and regulatory authorities. We welcome ASEAN's continuing work on combating arms and smuggling and encourage closer complementarity between regional initiative and global framework. In this spirit, the Philippines continues to champion the development of a regional roadmap towards a regional mechanism on weapons regulation in Asia-Pacific. This roadmap seeks to translate shared concern into practical cooperation, improving dialogue among national agencies, strengthening implementation capacity, supporting confidence-building measures, and creating pathways for sustained regional coordination on arms and ammunition control. As BMS-9 considered the challenges posed by new development in manufacturing, technology, and design, including polymer, modular, and 3D printed firearms, the Philippines support practical discussion that help all states strengthen implementation of the
I thank the Philippines very much indeed. I have the Russian Federation, followed by Burkina Faso, followed by Australia, then Germany. Russian Federation, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, the Russian Federation attaches priority importance to the whole host of issues related to the implementation of the UN Program of Action to Prevent, Combat, and Eradicate SALW, as well as the International Tracing Instrument to identify and trace in a timely and reliable manner SALW. We believe that this RevCon will be an important milestone as the international community seeks to combat the illicit proliferation of weapons. We call on colleagues to build on the positive momentum that's been created on combating the illicit trade in SALW, momentum we achieved thanks to the BMS 9 and the RevCon in 2022 and 2024, respectively. It's worth noting that a number of important provisions contained in the outcome documents of both the RevCon and the BMS were reflected in UNGA resolutions 79/40 dated 2nd of December 2024 and 80/38 dated 1st December 2025. We stand convinced that the work to bolster the practical benefits stemming from the program of action remain relevant. This requires us to continue our focused discussions on how to develop effective measures to prevent SALW being diverted into the illicit trade. SALW continues to be one of the most frequently used types of weapons in regional and local conflicts, which results in countless human casualties. Terrorist, criminal, and extremist groups are constantly broadening their illegal SALW arsenals and enhancing their qualitative parameters. The uncontrolled proliferation of SALW is fueled by the fact that in some states and regions there are conflicts which persist, as well as gaps in national export control regimes, on top of cross-border corruption and criminal schemes. Often, interstate transfers of SALW result in non-state entities getting their hands on them. And frequently, the supplier, focused on profit-seeking and other short-term considerations, whether they be military, political, or otherwise, well, the supplier does not even think about where and to what end the shipment of SALW they're sending will end up in, a shipment subject to export controls, nor do they think about in whose hands they will ultimately fall. We call for additional measures to be taken, in particular, a universal ban on the transfer of all kinds of SALW, the transfer thereof to entities that have not been authorized to receive them by the recipient states. A whole host of other additional measures must be undertaken, and these will be reflected in full in the statement we will deliver. The speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank the Russian Federation. I have Burkina Faso, followed by Australia, followed by Germany. Burkina Faso, you have the floor.
The delegation of Burkina Faso would like to congratulate you on your election to chair this 9th biennial meeting. Mr. Chairman, in the Sahel region, criminal networks and terrorist groups, as well as cross-border trafficking, are fueled by the uncontrolled flow of SALW. The Confederation of Sahel States and its members are therefore working to combat this illicit trade, to break these circuits which are profiting criminals. In order to do this, we've bolstered our system aimed at combating these types of weapons through our national weapons and ammunition management strategy. We've bolstered our legal framework, marking and tracing. We've improved stockpiling controls and chain of custody controls. We've bolstered the capacity of our army and our defense forces. We are collecting data on and seizing such weapons, and this work is ongoing. We're also raising awareness in communities about the dangers related to small arms and light weapons. Mr. Chairman, Burkina Faso, as well as its partners within the framework of the Sahel States Confederation, is calling for heightened international cooperation underpinned by shared responsibility and solidarity. To that end, Burkina Faso would like to call for greater technical assistance for countries affected by terrorism, as well as greater cooperation on arms tracing, in addition to better control over arms transfers, with a view to preventing these being diverted and falling into the hands of terrorism. We call for greater support for the border management and chain of custody programs, chain of custody for seized weapons. The Confederation of Sahel States believes that it's absolutely necessary to factor in the specific reality of Sahel states when mounting the international response to this scourge. The fight against these weapons is inextricably linked to the challenge of development, governance, the fight against poverty, as well as the need to tackle humanitarian crises, which are making certain countries, certain populations more vulnerable. Mr. Chairman, the Confederation of Sahel States stands convinced that it is only through coordinated, collective, and balanced action that we will be able to reduce the illicit flows of arms and restore peace, security, and stability in the Sahel and all over the world. What's particularly important is ensuring the speaker's microphone has been cut off.
I thank Burkina Faso. I give the floor to Australia, followed by Germany, then Suriname. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia remains committed to thwarting the diversion of illicit small arms and light weapons. The deadly anti-Semitic terrorist attack in Sydney in December last year was a national tragedy. Australia's response has aimed to address the motivation and method behind the attack by strengthening our gun laws and cracking down on hate speech. Our domestic efforts go hand in hand with global efforts to implement the program of action. Chair, UN figures show that in 2024, small arms were responsible for up to 30% of the 48,000 conflict-related civilian deaths. This underscores the challenge before us, and UN ODA is finding that 70 to 90% of conflict-related sexual violence involves small arms and light weapons, demonstrates a particularly tragic dimension to the problems we face in the illicit diversion of small arms and light weapons. Chair, in addressing the gaps created by technological innovation, while also seizing opportunities technology offers to combat the diversion of small arms and light weapons, is a critical focus of BMS 9. We welcome the first open-ended technical expert group meetings this week and encourage all states to engage actively. The rapid spread of 3D printed firearms and components is placing untraceable ghost guns into the hands of those with nefarious intent. These weapons, lacking serial numbers or markings, pose a growing threat that demands collective response. In Australia, we have acted domestically by criminalising the possession of blueprints for 3D printable weapons, an example of the kind of forward-leaning legislative measures needed to stay ahead of this challenge. At the same time, technological advances are strengthening our ability to trace weapons. In Australia, we have successfully applied forensic techniques to recover obliterated markings and reinforce this effort through legislation that criminalises tampering with firearm identifiers. Our National Firearms Identification Database provides a critical platform for tracing, and we are now leveraging innovations such as smart water technology to track the movement of firearms and ammunition. Together, these tools demonstrate how we can outpace illicit diversion. We encourage all states to make full use of the available legislative and technological solutions to meet the evolving threat. Chair, Australia recognises that cooperation and assistance at the regional level are essential if flows of illicit weapons are to be disrupted. We were pleased to participate in the first Asia-Pacific UN Fellowship Training Program in SALW, held in Jabalpur, India, earlier this year. We thank and commend UN ODA and the UNR CPD and India for the success of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. I have Germany, followed by Suriname, followed by France, followed by Ukraine. Germany, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, let me join previous speakers in congratulating you, Ambassador Larsen, upon your appointment as chair of the 9th BSM. We thank you and your team for the excellent preparation of this meeting. My delegation fully aligns itself with a statement to be delivered by the European Union. I will add the following remarks in our national capacity. Last year's Secretary General's report to the Security Council once again confirmed that the misuse and illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons remain key drivers of armed violence, increasing regional insecurity, terrorism, and organized crime. Given its profound consequences for both human security as well as regional stability, it is essential that the challenges emanating from the illicit proliferation of small arms, light weapons, and conventional ammunition are discussed in the Security Council at a regular basis. If elected to the Security Council for the period 2027-2028, Germany will partner with like-minded members to ensure this essential topic remains high on the agenda of the Council. The POA stands out among international arms control instruments as a cooperative forum focused on identifying the best approaches for a common goal. Let us maintain this constructive spirit of compromise and make good use of this 9th BSM in order to strengthen its implementation. It is high time that we can finally start discussing consequences and potential remedies for modular systems, illicitly manufactured, craft-produced, and 3D printed firearms and components, and other challenges in a dedicated technical working group. Let me convey the appreciation of my government to you, Ambassador Kanu, and your team for your important contribution in organizing and presiding over the upcoming open-ended technical expert group sessions. Mr. Chair, Germany reserves substantial parts of its national budget for disarmament and arms control for supporting international efforts to address the challenges by the misuse, diversion, and trafficking of small arms and light weapons. Since several years, Germany is funding dedicated projects implemented by UN institutions, the OSCE, and non-governmental organizations with a combined volume of about 15 million euros annually. Our experience in supporting dedicated project work underlines that self-control and preventing diversion is a complex task that requires the involvement of multiple stakeholders, including national self-commissions, technical state agencies, multilateral agencies, as well as non-governmental implementing partners, academia, research institutions, and manufacturers. Germany is grateful for the possibility to partner with a diverse range of implementing partners and consequently include civil society partners in our national delegations to the
I'm sorry, Germany. I will pass the floor, but thank you very much indeed. Suriname has asked to defer its speaking slot. I will pass the floor to France, followed by Ukraine, followed by Mozambique. France, you have the floor.
Yes.
Could we give the speaker to microphone to France, please?
Yes. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment to chair this 9th BMS on SALW. I would like to commend the high caliber of the preparatory work that was conducted. It was transparent and inclusive, this over the course of the last few months. Rest assured, you have my delegation's confidence and full support as you discharge your duties. We welcome the fact that the open-ended technical expert group on new technologies will be meeting for the first time. We would like to extend our encouragement to your colleague, Ambassador Michael Kanu, who will be chairing the group. Now, this meeting is a very special one. Our time is limited, but this shouldn't prevent us from being bold. We appreciate your approach to the outcome document, which is going to be succinct and should be able to garner consensus on the provisions contained therein. Nonetheless, we believe it's important for this outcome document to include the following important points. First, the document should reiterate our willingness to factor in a gender perspective, taking into consideration the effects of the illicit trade in SALW on women, men, girls, and boys, children, in other words. This is something we cannot slide back on, no backsliding. We should also recognize the complementarity of the commitments taken on in the POA and those signed up to by states in other regional and international instruments, such as the Arms Trade Treaty, the Firearms Protocol, and the Global Framework on Ammunition. We could also recognize the role of international institutions such as Interpol and UNODC. Last but not least, without preempting the outcome of the technical expert group meeting, the final document should also reflect the commitments we already took on at the last review conference as regards various technological and practical developments driven by traffickers. I'm referring to, in particular, modular weapons, polymer weapons, 3D printing, which are exacerbating conversion and reactivation of weapons. Also, the sending of components by post. These challenges
come on top of recent developments such as craft production and improvised production. Craft production is becoming more modern, it's more diversified, driven by online spread of information and know-how, in particular on the dark web. This is undermining existing measures aimed at arms control and tracing. It's vital for this issue to remain front and center of our attention. I thank you.
Thank you, France. I have Ukraine followed by Mozambique, followed by Belgium. Ukraine, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, at the outset, our delegation would like to congratulate you and other members of the Bureau on your election and wish you every success. Ukraine also wishes to express its appreciation to the Chair and to the UN ODA for the excellent preparation of this meeting. Ukraine aligns itself with the statement to be delivered by the European Union. Our delegation would also like to make some additional remarks in its national capacity. The illicit trade, diversion, and misuse of small arms and light weapons remain among the most serious threats to international peace and security. These weapons continue to fuel armed conflicts, organized crime, terrorism, and violence against civilians across the globe. For Ukraine, this issue has a particularly acute dimension. For more than 4 years, Ukraine has been defending itself against Russia's war of aggression. The scale and the intensity of the war have created significant challenges for Ukraine related to circulation, accounting, and control of weapons and ammunition. Despite these circumstances, we have established transparent mechanisms for monitoring the receipt and use of weapons and ammunition received from international partners as part of military assistance provided in order to strengthen countries' defense and security capabilities. Ukraine stresses that all weapons and military equipment received from its international partners are subject to strict control and accountability measures, and are used exclusively for the exercise of its inherent right of self-defense in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. The National Police of Ukraine, together with other competent authorities, continues to implement comprehensive measures aimed at preventing and combating illicit trafficking in firearms, ammunition, and explosives. In this regard, Ukraine introduced a mechanism for the declaration of firearms under conditions of active armed conflict. The system has enhanced governmental oversight of weapons circulation, encouraged the registration of previously undeclared firearms, and contributed to reducing the risks associated with illicit possession and diversion of SALW. Thanks to coordinated efforts by Ukrainian law enforcement agencies, no cases of illicit transfer of firearms from Ukraine to other countries have been recorded. Mr. Chair, Ukraine attaches particular importance to international cooperation in the areas of marking, record keeping, and tracing, as well as efforts aimed at preventing the diversion of weapons and ammunition. In this context, Ukraine continues to work closely with international partners, including Interpol, Europol, the EU, OSCE, Frontex, and neighboring countries to strengthen border security, information exchange, tracing capabilities, and law enforcement cooperation. The full statement will be uploaded on the UNPOA on SALW website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ukraine. I have Mozambique, followed by Belgium, followed by Guatemala, followed by Nepal. Mozambique, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Mozambique aligns itself with the statement delivered by African Group and adds these remarks in its national capacity. For Mozambique, the illicit proliferation and misuse of small arms and light weapons is not only a disarmament concern, it is a peace, security, and development challenge. Across Africa, these weapons have become literal weapons of mass destruction. They are cheap, mobile, and devastating. They fuel terrorism, organized crime, and intercommunal violence. They undermine state authority, and they divert scarce resources from development, education, health, and climate resilience. Mozambique knows this from experience. We continue to address legacy weapons from our past conflict while confronting terrorism activity in parts of the north. Our commitment is
is reflected in the implementation of Program of Action and the International Tracing Instrument, ratification of the SADC Firearms Protocol, accession of the Arms Trade Treaty, cooperation through SARPCO and Interpol, and national initiatives such as Operation Rachel and the transformation of weapons into a host project. This biennial meeting should strengthen implementation by prioritizing 5 areas: secure stockpile management and destruction of surplus weapons, systematic marking record keeping, and tracing of seized arms and ammunition, strong border customs, maritime, and intelligence cooperation. Practical measures to address illicit digital blueprints and 3D printed components, and predictable assistance to countries most affected by diversion and armed violence. Guided by the African Union's Silencing the Guns initiative, Mozambique remains committed to a result-oriented outcome that turns evidence into prevention, tracing into accountability, and arms control into sustainable peace and development. I thank you.
Thank you, Mozambique. Could I just foreshadow that I plan to adjourn the meeting close to 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. That should give us enough time to hear Belgium, Guatemala, followed by Nepal, and then I'd propose adjourning, I think. But Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Let me first congratulate you on your election and thank you for the way you conducted our debates during the preparation of this meeting. Belgium First, the language of gender is important for my delegation. As we always mention, the language proposed on gender is the floor and not the ceiling. Belgium co-sponsored the GenSAC paper in this regard. Second, we very much welcome the first session of the OETG. We hope it will provide a platform for exchanges of a technical nature regarding challenges and opportunities provided by new technologies, as well as international cooperation assistance in this domain. Belgium Side note, I had the opportunity to be a fellow of the European edition of the Small Arms and Light Weapons Fellowship organized by UNODA. This fellowship was extremely fruitful and very well organized. I can only recommend participation for interested colleagues. The working paper produced by Belgium for the OETG is a product of this fellowship. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Belgium. Guatemala, followed by Nepal. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Balanced, concise, consensus-focused document. The illicit trafficking of arms continues to fuel various manifestations of transnational organized crime, affecting the security of our citizens, the rule of law, and sustainable development. In this regard, the prevention and detection of the deviation of weapons towards non-authorized actors in illicit markets is of the utmost importance for Guatemala. This is why we believe it's particularly valuable that the document recognizes the need to address the deviation of weapons towards non-authorized users and illicit markets through measures that cover the entire life cycle of weapons, thus strengthening marking, registration, and tracing provisions, recognizing the challenges and opportunities derived from technological advance in the traceability of small arms and light weapons. The continuity of technical discussions on these matters will contribute to maintaining the relevance and efficacy of our international instruments to the new realities that states face. We recognize that regard it's fundamental to strengthen international cooperation, technical assistance, and the exchange of good practices. Chairman, Guatemala shares the vision that the fight against the illicit trafficking of small arms and light weapons must be addressed from a comprehensive perspective that recognizes its effects on security, sustainable to root out the root causes of violence with evidence-based approaches and to facilitate coordination between the different stakeholders involved. We believe that experience of this type reflect the value of comprehensive approaches and collaborative approaches that are required to address challenges associated with the impacts on our societies. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Guatemala. I then pass to Nepal. You have the floor, Nepal.
Continues to undermine international peace and security, driving armed conflicts, terrorism, and human suffering. We are concerned that today emerging technologies are transforming the way these weapons are produced, modified, trafficked, for preventing, combating, and eradicating the illicit trade in SALW in all its aspects. We also recognize the crucial role of governments in implementing robust national arms and light weapons, including aligning national laws with the POA and ITI, enforcing strict licensing and possession controls, prioritizing marking and record keeping, maintaining comprehensive databases, and cooperating closely with licensing procedures and effective information sharing among relevant authorities within and across borders. Second, we must close the technological gap through enhanced capacity building, technological In this regard, we support the OETEG's upcoming work to tackle the challenges posed by recent developments in SALW. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, Nepal remains steadfast to work closely with all partners in creating a safer world free from
bring to colleagues' attention. First of all, we'll resume our conversation in this room at 3 p.m. This afternoon. But before we continue in the context of the international tracing instrument. So we'll recommence with that presentation from the Secretariat. Secondly, I have 11 to contribute, which we'll do after the Secretariat presentation. Once we've concluded hearing those 11 speakers, I'll proceed with agenda item 8. I would just highlight some of the side events that are going to take place, particularly over this lunchtime period. There are three that I'm aware of. The radar, corruption's role in fueling arms diversion. That will be hosted at the permanent mission of the Netherlands at 1:15. And thirdly, a number of arms, trafficking and prevent diversion in the Caribbean. And that will be in Committee Room A, again at 1:15. So can I thank all of you for your contributions this morning. Thank you for being so disciplined in terms of Indeed, we're adjourned. Triumph.